always try to remember you manage tasks and lead people. And sometimes it's a blend. But even back into my Army time, I had some great leaders and I had some disasters.
Yeah.
So the biggest lesson I would say is just not forgetting what it's like to be a paramedic on the ambulance. When we think about a policy or a rule or a piece of equipment, you know, what's this going to look like in the ambulance? How's this going to affect someone on the road?
Welcome to In Service, the EMS podcast, where frontline experience meets leadership insight. Hosted by Jason Falvey, a seasoned paramedic and EMS leader with over 30 years in the field. This show brings you conversations with people shaping emergency medical services today. From street-level medics to innovators on the bleeding edge of EMS, we dive into real stories, leadership strategies, and what it takes to build high-performing teams in high-stakes environments. Let's get in service.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Today's guest is a seasoned EMS leader with a foundation built on service, discipline, and people-first leadership. A former Army medic, he's spent his career in emergency medical services, from the back of an ambulance to overseeing countywide EMS operations. He's passionate about keeping policies practical, staying connected to the crews on the road, and leading with confidence, patience, and humility. His approach to leadership is grounded in real-world experience, making sure every rule, policy, or decision works where it matters the most, in the field. He's helped shape culture across generations, championed peer support programs, and pushed for technology that improves safety, communication, and performance. Whether it's operational efficiency, leadership development, or building a stronger EMS culture, he brings a clear sense of purpose to everything he does. Welcome, Chief McNeeley.
All right. Welcome, Brian. Good morning. Thank you for sitting down with me today. And I think this is going to be a really great conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership, EMS culture. Okay. We've got a bunch of different topics here. And let's get into it.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So tell us, where'd you grow up? Where are you from? You know I'm not from around here, but...
Sure, I could tell. So I was born and raised not around here, but in Cleveland, Ohio. So east of Cleveland is where I grew up. I joined the Army at 18, and that's what eventually brought me to Clarksville, Tennessee. And the rest of my family, immediate family, followed. So my parents live in Tennessee now. My brother lives in Tennessee.
It's beautiful here.
It was far enough away from Ohio at the time when I settled here that, it was close enough to drive to, but far enough away. My wife's from Oregon, so didn't want to go back to Oregon, so here we stayed.
Oregon's beautiful, too.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
So obviously you went into the Army. You were a medic in the Army.
Yes.
Why'd you choose that MOS?
Sure. As a kid, my dad, a retired firefighter paramedic from Northeast Ohio. So as a kid growing up, visiting Dad at the firehouse, just kind of being enamored with that. He had been in the Navy as well. So my thought process from as long as I can remember was I'm going to join the military and then get out and be a firefighter paramedic. That was kind of what just always seeing fire helmets and old bunker boots. And just
You're
those
born
things.
into it.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just what I wanted to do. I never questioned it, never really, was never on the fence about what I wanted to do. That was just it. That's what I was going to do.
Wow.
So I joined the Army as a medic.
How long were you in for?
6 years, 97 to 03. And then got out, and here in Tennessee where we're at, the fire department doesn't do medicine really, just at a very basic level. And I wanted to pursue a career as a paramedic, so that's what steered me away from the fire department and more towards the paramedic side of things.
We can do some really cool things. Over the years, any particular EMS calls stand out?
When someone asks me that question, I think about many calls just run through my head.
Yeah.
Pictures, from your first pediatric cardiac arrest or your first drowning to taking care of family members in the back of an ambulance to taking care of friends and coworkers to the good ones where you help, you remember the conversations you have with a woman who's delivering a baby and the conversations you have with someone she has on FaceTime while she's delivering the baby, so just all those things just run through my head really quick when you say that. So I think about the good ones and then I think about the tragic ones, the ones where you share humor afterwards to try and, I guess, lighten the load.
Release the pressure.
So just a plethora. I can remember all the babies I helped deliver or delivered.
Yeah.
So I guess those would be good ones that probably take the forefront in my mind versus all the bad ones.
Yeah. So now, what's your current role?
So right now, I am the operations chief here at Montgomery County EMS. I'm in an administrative role and have been for almost 2 years now.
Looking back as your time as a medic, what lessons did you learn that you've brought forward now into your leadership role?
I think I can remember being on the ambulance and seeing the folks that were in leadership positions and just making mental notes along the way. That's something that I want to do, or that's absolutely something that I never even want to try to do. So I think if I had to pick a lesson, I would say just not forgetting what it felt like to be on the ambulance. And that's been my biggest personal fear moving into administrative roles over the years is I'm still a paramedic, but looking in the mirror and saying, Brian, you haven't touched a patient or been in an ambulance for however many years, and that scares me as a paramedic.
Right.
And I think it also prevents me from trying to keep a finger on the pulse of the field. I can't do it all the time, but just try.
I look back over the years, I've worked for some really good managers, really good administrators, but there were very few tremendous leaders in that group. When you work for one, it's a whole different experience.
I agree.
It really is.
I always try to remember you manage tasks and lead people. And sometimes it's a blend. But even back into my Army time, I had some great leaders and I had some disasters.
Yeah.
So the biggest lesson I would say is just not forgetting what it's like to be a paramedic on the ambulance. When we think about a policy or a rule or a piece of equipment, what's this going to look like in the ambulance? How's this going to affect someone on the road? Either get someone's opinion or somebody go try it.
Yeah. And podcast is not unfamiliar to you. You've been on another podcast recently.
Yes, sir. TEMSA is the abbreviation. That's at least how we say it. Tennessee Emergency Medical Services Education Association.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
TEMSA or TEMSA, yeah.
Yeah, you did really well there.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed listening to that. And the host was really good as well.
Eric's a great guy.
Yeah, very knowledgeable man.
Is.
Yeah. So what qualities do you think define a really effective EMS leader? Because we know you can look at in the fire service what qualities define a really good leader there. But in EMS, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think it would probably be a multitude of ones. Confidence. I think people look to the folks in leadership positions to have confidence in a couple different ways. Probably confidence in knowing the decision they're making is right, but also the confidence in themselves to say, I don't know the answer. That you have to be confident to say, I'm not going to fake the funk. I'll find the answer out for you, or let's go talk to somebody who does have the answer, but confident enough to say you don't know something.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have a problem with my people come to me and tell me I got something wrong. Or they come to me and they're challenging me on a decision I made. I'm not wrong very often now. I've been doing this a long time. Pretty much seen these situations. They do oftentimes have a better way of doing it. Right. And ultimately, isn't that what we're trying to do, right? Improve.
For sure, yeah. So confidence, patience. By default, I'm not an incredibly patient person, but I have learned to just take a step back. And when it's either making a decision or having a tough conversation, just having a little patience, not defaulting aggressive with an approach to something. For years, I was always very black and white, just how my mind worked. It's black or it's white.
Yeah.
And I've learned that there's gray in there. And sometimes we operate in a lot more of the gray than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
So confidence would be, first and foremost, I think, but then patience and humility, like you said, knowing that, hey, I was wrong. I made a decision. It didn't work out. I didn't go ask the folks that it would affect and just saying, yeah, I messed up. I'm as human as the next guy. And Lord knows I mess up enough.
And, I'm sure you get directives. Sure. You got to get this done. And, or there's some new procedure that needs to be carried out. And a lot of times it's not practical if you're in the field to be able to run through 27 steps in the process of doing something. Even though they may be worthwhile and practical steps, it just doesn't translate well.
No, I agree. Those are some that come to my mind right off the bat.
Very often EMS leaders can be very reactive. I think it's the nature of this business. We see something, we react to it, especially when it comes to patient care.
Sure.
But as a leader, though, what habits do you use to stay more in a proactive role? Because we want to head off things before they become issues and problems.
Yeah, so you're right. A lot of what we do is very reactive, especially when you're in the field working. You're faced with a problem, you have to make decisions and then act on them. Fortunately, in my role, I've learned that, I can try to be more proactive because I have the ability to step back a little bit more to make those decisions. The shift commanders, the field leaders are much more in that reactive role, but I think ways that I can try and stay proactive is learn from the mistakes and the lessons of those reactive scenarios. Just remembering scenarios that we've gone through and how we had to be reactive in those scenarios, and then taking that information and saying, okay, to stop this from happening to where we're forced to make this reactive decision, let's try and get this information on the back end now, ahead of time, to where our hands aren't forced in that reactive decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Systems, habits, pulling data, looking at, in my operational role, vehicle maintenance. The ambulances, they get used and abused. It's the cost of doing business. They're vehicles, they break, we use them.
Right.
That's what they're meant for. If we don't have ambulances on the road, we don't have reserve ambulances, we're going to have a hard time making the calls. Using the systems that we have in place to track maintenance specific to that vehicle. When do they due? What did we do last time? What things can we do to prevent XYZ from happening because we've had these problems with XYZ? So I think those, and being very habitual about it. It's a simple example, but it needs to be done. If you have all these ambulances out for the wrong problem, if you're seeing a trend, then you have to try and combat it somehow.
Yeah. Approaching everything with a sense of urgency and then backing that up with brute consistency. And you just mentioned consistency. That's what it boils down to, right? Being consistent in what we're doing every day.
Yeah, just building those habits, building the muscle habits, figuring as a group, it's not just one person, but as a group, as a collective, figure out what we can do to prevent some of these things, and then let's develop the habit as a group.
Yeah.
And, hold each other accountable, or just make it a pattern. Like, that this is your role on this day of the week, you do this, to help pull that data so that we can move forward and take it and address the things we need to address.
Yeah. And, very oftentimes when an issue develops or something comes up, one of the first things we do after talking with the crews is look at the data itself. Fleet maintenance is always a challenge. The trucks, we have units in our fleet that never turn off. They just run 24/7. And they're going to have problems. A lot of the vehicles we run just aren't meant to be driven like that.
Yeah, and they get driven hard. They're driven hard.
Yeah, and so you got to have good systems in place to catch those things, to prevent them from having major problems. But they do happen.
They do.
The business
It
we're
is.
in.
It is.
So how do you develop? You've got about how many medics or EMTs do you have here?
Field personnel, 135-ish total.
Wow. No. How do you cultivate potential leaders from the ranks? What are you looking for?
So I think those that we try to cultivate and grow, it's not hard to see them, at least in my mind. They're the go-getters.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are looking for, they're saying, hey, boss, give me some more work. Hey, can I do this? Or show me how to do that? I don't understand. Can you teach me? So that maybe I can do it. Can I do it once or twice? Folks that are just eager, right? They're trying, they see the big picture. They're trying to build the team by helping with work. And I think you find those people and you identify them, and then those are the ones you pour into.
Yeah.
And you take the time to teach them and show them a task, or involve them on just sitting down with them and saying, this is how this process works.
Yeah, you can't just sit on the sidelines and watch things happen, right? You got to want to be involved.
Right. If you want to move and progress through the ranks and be a leader. If you just want to come to work and do the job as a paramedic or an EMT and then go home, that's fine.
Yeah, that's great. We need a lot of those people too.
To each his own.
Yeah.
But I think the folks that you quickly identify, because I think they make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Because they're smart, they're eager to learn, they're willing to take constructive criticism and say, hey, can I do anything better? What can I do different next time? And you mentor them. And because someday, my hope is that they take my job.
Yeah. We're bringing up the next generation.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. In EMS, there's a nationwide shortage of paramedics across the board. People are just not getting into EMS like they were in the past. And so we've been focusing a lot on culture change. So let's talk a little bit about that, or about building a culture. In changing a culture, that's something that doesn't happen overnight. So in EMS now, we have many different generations. We have baby boomers, We have Gen Xers, Zs, and I think Generation Alpha is the next one that we're starting to see come in, the 18-year-olds. And the workforce today is so diverse. And I know in my operation, at least 50% of our paramedics and EMTs are women, which when I got started, it just wasn't like that. In order to build a strong culture, you really need to be able to reach out to all those different generations and groups within your organization. And if you're looking to create a culture that appeals to all those different groups, how do you go about doing that? That's such a difficult thing.
It is. So it's so different interacting with the different types of, not just personalities, but different generational folks. And I think a lot of it, if you kind of, at least in my simple mind, you think about personalities and generations kind of along the same way. How I interact with you is different than how I interact with the 18-year-old brand new EMT that we just hired. I think first and foremost, to change that culture, you have to be relational. How I interact with that 21-year-old young woman that we just hired who's new to EMS is much different than how I interact with that seasoned paramedic who's 62 years old.
Right.
Just different relational, and by building those relationships, and it's hard. Some days, you just don't want to, because we're in a people business. Sometimes it can be a lot. But I think building the relationships and knowing the staff and knowing how to interact with the staff is key. And once you know their generation, you kind of know what drives them. How you interact with that 21-year-old is unique compared to the baby boomer who's 62. But build relationships. I think it makes it easier to interact. My wife and I used she read a book about the Enneagram personality test. I think it's a faith-based personality test. We all took the test, and that just kind of made me think, well, I should use this. And there's a lot of different personality tests out there, but that's just one of them. I've asked some of the leaders here at the department to take the same test and help understand what makes them tick. So I know that I'm a number 1 on the Enneagram. My wife's a number 9. So when I'm interacting with a 1 or a 9 or an 8, and I know those characteristics of each of those, I know how to approach them. I know what makes them tick and what they're the peacemaker or they're the perfectionist, and you just kind of understand those things.
And it helps you change your approach.
You absolutely have to tailor it, because every shift, if you have 40 people on the shift, you have 40 different personalities. And how I interact with one is different than how I interact with another. But I think the first step is just being relational. And I'm not just coming to work and being a chief, but trying to be relational with the staff to where you can build relationships. And when you do that, I think that's the foundation, and everything just goes easier after that.
And when it's funny because when I got into EMS, you would still have very hard chiefs out there. Came in, barked a few orders. This is the way it's going to be done. Get at it.
No, I think that was the black and white in my mind. This is the way it's going to be. You just need to go do it.
Yeah.
And then,
especially coming out of the military.
Yeah. And, listening to the stories of the fire department back in the day from my father, and then seeing the Army that I was in is much different, I think, now than the Army. But I think most of the time in today's society, that will just be, I don't want to say a failure, but just won't be received well. And you won't influence, the influence that you want won't be there. Yeah.
I've always kind of relied on, it's very rare that I raise my voice. Unless something's occurring that's dangerous or destructive. If it's dangerous or destructive, I'm going to stop it. But it's very rare that I raise my voice, and it's more conversational. And I try to always seek first to understand what's going on and then be understood. And I communicate that. And I think people today, the generations we're working with, they need to know the why behind what it is we're doing.
100%.
Not just do it.
Yeah, and that's just, if they understand the why, this is why I said no. Like, I know I heard what you had to say. This is why I said no, but here's the why. This is the reason.
Yeah. And I think the more you practice this philosophy, leadership philosophy, the more natural it becomes.
Sure. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. One of my faults is defaulting aggressive, just reacting. I've taken things personal. It's just a fault.
It's hard not
It's
to
hard.
sometimes.
Like, I take things personal. And part of it, I think, is because we're invested. You're invested in something. You care about it. So it's very easy to take that as a personal attack. And I can remember when my daughters were little, I would get so frustrated with stuff, and my dad would say, "It's not personal, Brian. They're not doing it. It's just what they're going to do. That's just what they do. It's not personal. Don't take it so personal." So I try to think about that in leadership. I don't think anybody wakes up and say, I'm going to do this today just to stick it to Brian McNeeley. Maybe somebody did. I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think that's what drives it. I think they're just trying to, it's like being a parent, I think, sometimes in leadership.
Yeah.
So.
And, we were talking before we got started today. I had mentioned we ran a ping pong tournament.
Yes, yeah.
Which was we had a lot of fun with that. And, we're doing some other activities, and the younger generation coming in now are looking for that. Right? Mm-hmm. They're looking for a social interaction here. And maybe growing up as kids, they didn't really have that because of the technology generation that they're in. But, and, it can be hard because not everybody's looking for that, right?
Yeah.
The baby boomers not looking to play ping pong in the,
no.
in the garage.
I don't know Gen Zers are. I guess I'm a Gen Zer, but.
And so how do you go about changing a culture in EMS without alienating the people that built the culture we're operating in?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I think that's a challenging question.
It is.
Let's
talk the ping pong tournament. I know
it
that might
sounds
attract.
so silly, right?
No, but it's fun. I think anything. We've done events here, and we have a peer support group within our organization that is it's coworkers. It's EMTs and medics that work here that have gone through some training to be identified as a peer support member, so that they can help just talk to staff if they're if they're not down in the dumps or after a critical call. And I think the driving force is, I think that just shows our staff, whether you're a Gen Alpha or you're a Boomer, that we care. Like the staff cares. You are cared about. We support the peer support group as an administration, 100% behind it. It just shows that we care. I think that's visible, whatever generation you're in. We've done paintball tournaments, kickball, basketball, and historically, over the years that I've been in EMS, we didn't have, there weren't those things.
No.
There was not a paintball event. There was not you were lucky if the shift got together for a Christmas party.
Yeah.
In the time that I was here. I think that's changing because I find that the younger generation are the ones that are kind of spearheading these events. And I think that's great because it's not my forte. It's not the baby boomer forte. If nothing else, it gets people together. You can't force people to come to an event that's extracurricular. You can't force them. And if the baby boomers don't want to come or the Gen Alphas don't want to come, then that's their prerogative. But I think that just having those events, it kind of spreads.
I think there is significant value in it because the things that we see and experience every day as paramedics, most people can't function in those environments, see the things we're seeing and smell the smells and hear the sounds. And so then when you have something like a ping pong tournament, there's support in that group from doing those activities with people that are experiencing the same things you're experiencing. And a lot of times that's when the stories come out or the feelings about a call they might have run last week or earlier that day tend to come out.
Yeah.
And I've always found, it's terrible, right? People will come up to you and say, hey, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? I really don't want to talk about that. Think about that again.
It came forward.
Yeah.
Right in my head.
For me, I think the more I talk about those things, the less value it has for me. But that's just me. And we're all different, and we have to appreciate the differences.
Yeah, and camaraderie is important. Whether you're in the military or you're in the fire department or EMS, camaraderie in the fire department has always been much tighter than it has been in EMS. I don't know if it's just bigger groups of guys at a station by default. If that's it, I'm not really sure why it's different from EMS. But I feel like what I've seen here, I see that culture changing where folks do want to come and do things. We had a paintball event. Family members and employees came out, and we had easy 40, 50 people playing paintball.
Wow.
Which was a lot of fun.
And I bet you there are some really competitive people that you wouldn't think they would.
Right, yeah. And they all want to shoot somebody, So I bought a shirt that had a bullseye on the front and the back. And when we went and played, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to easily identify myself on the course so that you get to shoot me. Because how often do you get to do that?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, nobody hit me in the shirt. All the shots were below the belt. So I don't know if that says anything.
Hey, it's Jason Falvey. Thank you for spending part of your day with me here on In Service. If something from this episode hit home, maybe it reminded you of a call, a shift, or a hard lesson learned, follow the show and please send it to just one person and ask them to follow. Now let's get in service.
What innovations or operational changes have made the biggest impact in your system?
Sure. That's a great question. I would say they would all fall under the umbrella of technology. Hands down, when I think back to when I started, how we...
Manual blood pressures.
Those are still important.
Yeah.
But
They have a role. They have a time and a place.
Yeah, yeah. But just simple things, writing patient care reports,
Yeah.
to having to drop paper run tickets off at a central location every day,
Yeah.
to helping to a supply closet where you just helped yourself to the supplies you needed versus an online truck check off or an Excel spreadsheet with a pen that was so small that you had like 5 pages to check your truck off, to every truck being a Wi-Fi hotspot, to transmitting 12 leads to the ER, tracking truck data and mileages, and those types of things have just made the day-to-day operations just flow smoother. To AVL locations and ambulances to closest assigned units. I mean, eliminates all question as to where's the closest ambulance or who's it going to be. No more reindeer games of not saying where you are or not saying anything at all.
Run silent, run deep.
Right, right. I mean, it just puts the ambulance that's best for a response in play. Those things are huge, I think, when it comes to the day-to-day operations. Programs like Operative IQ that track supplies, to Sierra Wireless or InMotion, to tracking ambulances, to the app on my phone that shows me all the CAD data. Those sort of things are game changers.
Yeah.
As a leader, as an operational manager.
It definitely improves the delivery
For sure.
of EMS. No,
Right. So we can get there and take that manual blood pressure.
Manual blood pressures, it has a time and a place right now. But let's talk a little about some of the things we used to do. Mash trousers, military anti-shock trousers, right?
Yep.
What were some of the skills or tools that we used to use that we don't use anymore that you really like? Because for me, pacing was always a big thing. I always had a lot of luck with pacing people, but it's not really in there anymore.
Yeah. It's certainly not the first go-to option like it was. I mean, so many
We
things.
paced asystole all the time, and I got many people back with that, surprisingly.
That is surprising. There's just so many things that we did or didn't do back then that we are or aren't doing now. That's just the crazy thing about medicine. When you think about BLS, when you took it 20 years ago, all the things you did different compared to how we do it now. You know, straddling someone, pushing on their belly for the form, you know, they're unconscious and they're choking, but we're just pushing on the belly of a dead person. Yeah. Like just, and now it's like, it makes so much sense to do compressions instead. Just makes sense. I think of all the things that we're doing now that have just been game changers in medicine from what we didn't do back then.
Yeah. Capnography.
Capnography, CPAP.
Yeah,
You know,
CPAP, game
before
changer.
CPAP, I can remember sitting patients up, full upright as you can on the cot, standing behind them, balancing the cot with a BVM, and just trying to assist their ventilations when they're breathing, just to get some positive pressure.
Yeah.
That was the best you could do. But yeah, capnography, absolute game changer.
Yeah.
I don't know if we use it's like a tarp with handles, mega movers.
Oh, yeah.
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 Very simple concept, but so much easier than a sheet. And just
Yeah.
so, stair chairs, I mean, it can be expensive, but things like that. It's a very simple design, very simple tool, but just a game changer when it comes to medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had talked a little bit about this earlier about flying people out, right? Helicopters. And you were saying you use it a lot more here,
Yes,
right?
sir.
We rarely use it in our operation. But tell us about that, because that's a game changer too.
In the community we live in, we have one community-based hospital, so no trauma center, just one hospital. And that's going to change in the next probably 5 to 6 years with 3 other major hospitals announcing they're going to come here.
Population's expanding that much.
It is, yeah. And I mean, we're a growing community of significant size that has one hospital. And if you go anywhere else in Middle Tennessee, there's multiple hospitals for our size community. So I mean, I think it's a great thing for medicine in our community. Great thing for the folks of the community. But some of our partners, there's 2 different air services that we have here in the Clarksville, Montgomery County area. Vanderbilt Life Flight has a helicopter based here in Clarksville, as does Air Evac. They also have a base here. So we tend to see either one of those when we ask for a helicopter, because we get similar to an ambulance, you get the closest or the shortest ETA Whichever helicopter has the shortest ETA is who we get. So both are great partners. Both come in and help us do training. We speak and interact frequently. Different style helicopters. Each one company uses one style, and so there's some differences there, but they're both great partners in the community and are a tremendous service for us because we do frequently fly patients out, whether it's strokes, trauma would probably be the two top natures of calls that we would use them for.
What are you flying out the most?
Strokes and trauma.
Yeah. Wow.
Just because the hospital here in town is not a trauma center. We know the best thing for the patient. Just like someone having a stroke, comprehensive stroke center is the best thing for them.
Clot retrieval.
So we want to try and get them to that as quick as we can.
Yeah. What's their average flight time to the scene?
So one of the helicopters comes from North Clarksville. One of them is in the area that we're in, this kind of the St. B. Guthrie section of Montgomery County. It all depends. If they're coming from base, probably less than 10 minutes. And we have pre-designated landing zones all across the county. So, and that also, would dictate how long of an ETA.
Brian, do you have any major projects rolling out?
Yes, we're in the process of transitioning off of our current Kenwood Next Edge radio system to the Motorola P25 800 megahertz system. The state of Tennessee has a network called Tennessee Advanced Communication Network and is working to implement that network across the state to where you get coverage no matter where you go in the state of Tennessee.
And that'll be really important.
Huge. Yeah, being able to talk to your coworkers, whether they're fire, EMS, sheriff's office, police, is huge. So it exists in portions of the state, but it's being built out in Montgomery County. So we added, as a county, the county added 5 towers within Montgomery County and then kind of bolstered the existing system that was already there within the city of Clarksville. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars to make the project come to fruition. So the infrastructure is almost complete. They begin testing next month to test the signal strength of the network. And then we've pretty much received our full order of all of our equipment, the Motorola radio system. So it's a huge undertaking when you think about every base station will get a new radio, every ambulance will get a new radio, new portable radios. All the support vehicles have to be outfitted. That's different, antennas, different radios, a lot of hands-on each vehicle. So, and that's not just Montgomery County EMS, it's Montgomery County Fire Rescue, Montgomery County Emergency Management. So it's all those vehicles and all those stations.
Hundreds of vehicles.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a big project, and we've been very fortunate with some great partners with the company that's helped us order the Motorola radios and then Motorola itself. That they've done it before. They've done these system changes, so they kind of have an idea of the things that need to happen. But can't forget to mention the dispatch system at the 911 dispatch center. That has to be upgraded. So they're also making that change. So we've all worked well together to have those meetings and kind of formulate a plan so that all the key players are talking, just like in anything else. If you don't communicate, it's gonna fail.
That's a massive undertaking.
So it's exciting. We've seen our partners in the community with the police department and the fire department have used that Motorola platform with that 800 megahertz system, and it's just night and day compared to what we've been using. So it's super exciting for me to know that the medics in the field will be able to pick up the radio and press the button and talk pretty much no matter where they're at. And we can't do that now. We're restricted with some of the areas and environments that we're in, and we just don't get radio service.
How long has this project been underway?
I would say it kicked off, I can't remember the exact date, but last year is kind of when we started having, I'm sure it's before that with conversations and money appropriation, but as far as boots on the ground, people moving dirt, building, well over a year.
Wow. And when do you think this will wrap up? Because you still have boxes of equipment out there in the garage, right?
We do. We're working on the schedule now for uploading all the radio management programming. But like I said, Motorola will be on site in a couple of weeks to test the signal strength of the system. We're hopeful by spring that we're looking at going live. So over the winter, we'll be just having everything in place, programmed already in place, so that when the switch gets flipped, we can pick up and go live.
Let's switch over and talk a little bit about education. So what's your take on continuing education in professional development for paramedics?
I think it's huge. So we know, and we kind of talked about it already with medicine, how it's what we're doing now is we're not going to be doing in 5 years. And what we're doing now, we didn't do 5 years ago.
Right.
it's just so ever changing. This career path, paramedicine EMS is so different. You can't just get in, yes, we're public safety, at least in my environment for a government agency, we're public safety. And I think it can breed complacency.
Has a propensity for that.
It does. And my father used to say that public safety breeds complacency. And I think that if you get complacent as a paramedic or an EMT, somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah. The quality of the care will decline
right.
over time.
Yes. It's an ever-changing animal. And I know that we do the CEUs to keep our license, but staying abreast of current guidelines and just the current innovations, I think is key.
And I was saying this just the other day that the paramedics coming out of school today are so far ahead of where I was coming out of school.
Absolutely.
Just with the technology and the level of care they can provide, just so far beyond.
Yeah, I agree. And that's great. I applaud them for that. So I think you have to stay above it. You can't just come into work and, like some folks say, EMS stands for earn money sleeping. You can't do that if you're going to be successful and try to be the best paramedic that you can for your patients. You have to go to conferences. You have to read articles, listen to podcasts, just those sort of things to just try and better yourself to stay up.
Right. And so you kind of answered the question I was just going to ask you is how do you encourage your field staff to stay clinically sharp?
Yeah.
All those things.
Listen to one podcast a day or read one article go to GEMS and read an article for free. Just do something. Take a canned education course on a platform that you can, where it's video based, it's not live, but it just gets you thinking. And do something each shift. Do something every shift.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to do that.
So for younger medics today that are looking to move into leadership in the future, what skills should they be developing? The first one that comes to mind to me would be communication skills. Yeah.
Just being able to talk to people.
Yeah.
Your patients. And that's a struggle that I'm not precepting paramedics in the field anymore, but I'm interacting with the staff the best I can. And the younger generation of new paramedics, it's not the challenge. I don't think is for them to understand the salient features of ventricular tachycardia. What they're struggling with, I think, is communicating with their peers, with other providers, and with the patient. Just talking. And taking that lead role and saying, okay, I've got it. Here's the things we need to do. Delegating tasks, communicating to other providers in the back of the ambulance. And I think they just lock up when it's time to talk.
Yeah.
And I think the hurdle is communication, those skills.
Yeah. I agree. Communication is probably the biggest one. And my organization puts all of our leaders, regardless of what level you're at, through a leadership training seminar. It covers a lot of different topics, including generational awareness and how we relate to different generations, how we communicate with those generations. But probably one of the biggest components of that is crucial conversations and how to have those. Because honestly, if you have a provider that's performing in a substandard way, you have to be able to communicate with them and help them to address the behaviors that are leading to that substandard performance. And that's a real challenge because people don't often respond well to criticism.
No,
they don't.
I think it's all how you spin it. And if you have relationships with staff to where it makes it easier, you have conversations on the daily, and it becomes easier to talk to them when it's time to have that crucial conversation. You've kind of broken the ice with them on a relational level, and it makes it a little easier to have that conversation where it's the hard conversation.
Yeah. And a lot of times you're really doing that person a kindness by having that hard conversation about a behavior that's just not going to sustain them in this career, especially if they're looking to advance into a leadership role.
What I try to always say or come across with is this is just a conversation. Like, I'm just coming to you, we're having a conversation. You don't see a formal write-up in front of you. I'm having a conversation because it's something that we've observed. I want you to be aware of it so that you can adjust and move forward. And it's water under the bridge.
Yeah, and we'll help you get there.
The struggle is when you have those conversations, you have that conversation with the same person, and it's just not clicking. Remember that last time we had the conversation? And that's the struggle.
And you hear the success is when they come to you and tell you about a story, right? where they've taken your advice or they've listened to the conversation and they've changed their behavior. Or probably the biggest one is when they've caught themselves before they've made the mistake or behaved wrongly.
Yeah, you find that. And if you maybe approach it a little jokingly, but joking enough to where, oh, he just called me out, you know.
Yeah.
I get it. He was laughing a little bit, but I take him serious now. I think some of those instances are beneficial as well. It kind of just get your point across, but not as knife-handed as, you know,
Right.
you'd want to.
So what motivates you to stay in EMS? You've been in it for many years now. What keeps you coming back?
Obviously, it's not taking care of patients anymore. I love that when I did it. I miss it. I think if I had to pick what motivates me is to try and leave it better than I found it. I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. I think we're all human, but I've tried to learn from those mistakes. So if I can help impart some wisdom on the folks that are doing it now to not make the mistakes that I made. And when I tell them that, listen to what I'm telling you, because I made these mistakes. Don't do those things. And not that that's going to steer you 100% towards success, but you'll definitely learn from not doing those things. It'll help you be successful. So I think that's just to impart some of the experience. I wouldn't even call it wisdom because I'm not a wise guy. I've had a lot of experiences, and I've learned from the good ones and from the bad ones. If I can help impart some of that wisdom on the younger generation or the folks that are just coming into it, that might save them some heartache or some trouble down the road, then I think it's a win.
Yeah. You know, and for me, I just don't want to see the newer people coming through have to carry the burden alone. If I can help them through these difficult calls, these challenging situations, and maybe give them some advice that helps them prevent getting into a situation.
Yeah.
Because we know if you've been in this business long enough, EMS calls, they don't always go well. Sometimes they go terribly wrong. And not because the person necessarily did something wrong. It's just the nature of what we deal with every day, on the road at least. So if I can help them get through these situations and maybe shoulder some of the burden for them, that's really what keeps me coming back.
Sure. You know, just trying to help, like whether that's fighting for a benefit that they don't have now or working to try and obtain funds for a piece of equipment that they don't have now. I mean, those are the things that are on my side of the house now. It's slow moving, but to try and leave it better than I found it, I think would probably be, that's what drives me.
Awesome.
Because we're all fixers in EMS. We want to fix it, you know, in the field. When you're practicing medicine on patients, it's much slower when you're on the administrative side of things, when you're trying to fix something that you see as something that needs to be fixed. It moves slow.
And I think people in public safety, when something bad happens, either you want to get involved or you want to get as far away from that as possible. I think the people that want to be involved are the people that get into public safety and especially EMS.
Yeah, I agree. That we're problem solvers. We're fixers. A lot of type A personalities, a lot of type 1s, whichever.
Is that the test you took?
Yeah, type A, type 1, it's one and the same person. You know,
Yeah.
we want to fix things and make a difference.
What do you think is most misunderstood element of EMS leadership? Well, you wish people understood more about your role, especially people out on the road.
Okay. That we don't just sit behind a desk all day and drink coffee.
You don't?
I don't. I do have a desk and I do drink coffee, but sometimes it's not always behind it. That I think what I find myself explaining to staff about a lot is I don't go looking for problems. Like I promise you I don't. I have enough to do on the daily that I don't go looking for problems. Some of the folks that used to work when I was in the field and I worked with on shift, they'd come in and say, "Hey, what are you doing today?" And I tell them, and they're like, "How do you find this stuff?" Listen, I don't go looking for it. It literally just falls on my desk. And that I think that's what I would try and pass along to staff is I don't go looking for problems. Not that all of my job is a problem or problem solving, but I find myself putting out a lot of fires or dealing with problems and then trying to find time to manage the reports that I have to generate, the quotes that I have to get, and the 3 quotes for one piece of equipment, all the follow through I do on those things, and coordinating with vendors for millions of dollars of radio equipment. It's just, there's not enough time in the day. I leave every day and I'm like, there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
So I've often contemplated having, you bring your kid to work day, come to work with the chief for a day.
Yeah.
And follow me around or be with me for a day or two and see who I talk to and what I do all day long.
Yeah.
I think that might be beneficial.
Yeah. Very often we'll have a crew member that doesn't have a partner or they're out on injury or somehow they end up with me for a day. And the first thing I would do is hand them my phone.
Just answer this.
Listen, here you go. I don't think they realize the amount of phone calls that come in during the course of the day. And it's really overwhelming. And then I've got radios and emails coming in and text messages and the amount of time you get tied up in some of this non-productive, really. I still have projects I'm working on that I have to advance forward every day.
I come away from the day and you're like, I'm not really sure what I did today.
Yeah.
And I've been
I know I was busy.
Right, I was there all day and I was busy, but I'm not really sure what I got accomplished. I'm very fortunate. I felt like what you're describing when I was on shift as a shift commander, much more in the trenches and all those questions, everything on the operational, day-to-day operational things were fielded by me as a shift commander. Now, in the position that I'm in, I have those shift commanders catching a lot of that and filtering it, fortunately, before it gets to me so that I'm not inundated as much. They're the ones that are being inundated with that day in, day out. So I'm fortunate. I can still focus on other things, but we're all part of it. So
Yep.
If they're in it, I try to feel it some too.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to a younger you?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. I'd probably say something that my dad told me is not to take it personal.
Yeah.
That'd probably be one of the first things that I would say. Don't take it personal, whether it's a patient, a coworker. And that's hard. Like, that's a struggle on the daily for me, even to this day, just not to take it personal. I definitely tell myself that. I'd probably also say enjoy where you are. I've always had the mindset, what's looking around the corner for what's next. Okay, I'm doing this. What's next? And that's not a bad thing, I think, per se. I think that's what drives people to succeed, I think. But I also think you have to be comfortable where you're at, comfortable and competent where you're at before you start trying to jump. So I would probably say just enjoy where you're at while you can. Those are two things that I think would come. There's probably a plethora of other things that I would say. My wife always teases me when we met. I was in the military and very rigid. I feel like I've lessened in rigidity over the years, that I've relaxed some. But I've had 2 daughters and have been married for 25 years. So I think I've been just, I don't want to say forced, but relaxing has been just pivotal in my existence. I'd probably tell my younger self, don't be so rigid. Just relax, so that I wasn't so serious all the time. I look back now, when my girls were younger, I was just
Driven.
Yeah, just driven. And now, my wife's like, you never would have done that or said that or let that. I said, I know. I guess I'm getting soft. And my
They've
daughter's
broken you down.
Yeah, maybe I have. But, it's...
You've just gained perspective on life.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I look at things a lot different now at 47 than I did at 27.
Yeah.
It's funny that my brother and I we have a shared document and we called it Old Age Memoirs. And we just have bullet points that we add to it. Things that we think about today that we'll share with each other, hopefully 30 years from now.
Yeah.
When my perspective is different, when I'm 77, I can say, well, you thought that way at 47, Brian. So you probably remember that. It's funny. Some of it's humor, but some other parts of it are serious.
Yeah.
That kind of goes in line with what I would tell my younger self.
What do you think the future of EMS looks like? Where do you think we're going to be 10 years down the road? I know you've got the big Motorola project coming out, and that's a massive undertaking. It's going to have a significant impact on your service. We talked about other advancements and how far along EMS providers are today. What do you think EMS is going to look like?
No, I think that's a great question. Where I would hope that we would be, we see the 911 system just, I don't want to say broken system, but, emergency rooms are used as primary care physicians. Ambulances are used as routes to get to their primary care or the ER. I've heard talk of being able to transport to places other than an emergency room, depending on the nature of the call or the need. I think there's a place in medicine, no matter what community you're in, for a mobile integrated health or a community paramedic. And like we talked about earlier, working with the hospitals to prevent that readmission, but also to help mitigate some of the 911 calls that we go to, can screen those 911 calls and maybe not dispatch fire, police, EMS, but more of maybe just a quick response community paramedic that can help mitigate some of those responses and lessen some of the burden on the ambulances that are the 911 ambulances. Because I feel like there's a point in every community where the need for a 911 ambulance is going to outgrow the available ambulances to respond.
Right.
And then you're holding calls or you just don't have an ambulance available. We're fortunate in our county that we're not in that boat.
Right.
But I know there are communities that are, and they hold 911 calls.
There's a county I'm familiar with. It's pretty routine to hold calls every day.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate here that that's not a reality for us. I'm not saying we don't run low. You know, we start positioning trucks in needed positions because we're running thin. But I think, at least that's where I hope that medicine goes. Just having more control or maybe more change in the use of the 911 system.
What do you think the percentage of calls here are the true emergencies that require a life-saving intervention? At least an intervention.
Right. Probably less than 20%.
Yeah.
And that's just me guessing. That's 100% of spitball.
Top of your head, yep.
Yep. That's where we're doing something a life-saving intervention, something that they need right now. That'd be a guess.
Yeah. I think that's probably across the board.
I agree.
Correct answer, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and taking a big chunk of your day to do this.
No, absolutely. I'm glad to do it. I appreciate it. I'm just glad for somebody to listen.
Yeah. No, I think you definitely shared some really valuable information. I think people will find it very interesting, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to In Service, the EMS podcast, where frontline experience meets leadership insight. If you have found value in this conversation, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. You will find links in the episode notes.